Take a slow, gentle breath. In this space of stillness, stories become more than just words, they become mirrors. If you resonate with tales that awaken insight and stir the soul, you're in the right place. Subscribe to Journey Deeper. Now let the story unfold. Maya always believed in love, the sweeping kind, the one that pulls you under like an ocean current. When she met Leo, it felt just like that. Their first night together stretched until dawn, a blur of laughter, secrets, and tangled limbs. He said she made him feel alive. She said he made her feel safe. But beneath the magnetic pull was something neither of them could name, an ache that felt both thrilling and terrifying. They became inseparable quickly. Maya stopped seeing her friends. Leo quit his job to focus on music, but mostly stayed in her apartment, wrapped in a fog of weed and slow-burning resentment. Every moment apart brought panic. Every disagreement spiraled into screaming or sex or both. It wasn't passion. It was possession masquerading as intimacy. Maya learned how to read his moods like weather reports. Was today a quiet storm or a hurricane? She smiled even when her chest felt tight. She apologized even when she wasn't wrong. When he accused her of flirting with the barista, she cried and deleted the app where she posted her art. She said it was love. Her friends said it was madness. Leo, on the other hand, saw her devotion as both a comfort and a threat. He'd grown up with a mother who swung between silent disapproval and emotional collapse. Maya's attentiveness triggered something primal. He needed her near, yet resented needing her at all. When she tried to leave once, he showed up at her door at 2 a.m., soaked in rain, whispering, "I'll die without you." They made up by candlelight that night. Their bodies said things their mouths could not. "I need you. Don't leave. I don't know how to be alone." It was sacred and suffocating, beautiful and unbearable. But cracks began to form in the illusion. One evening, Maya caught herself staring into the bathroom mirror, toothbrush in hand, wondering who the hell she was. Her eyes looked older. Her art was gathering dust. Her laughter felt like an old recording of herself, playing out of habit. She asked Leo if they could spend a weekend apart. "Just a little space," she said. "Just a little air." He slammed the door so hard the wall cracked. They didn't speak for 3 days. On the 4th day, she came home to flowers and a note that said, "You make me crazy. I'm nothing without you." She sat on the couch, note trembling in her hand, and wept not from love, but from the weight of his need. It felt like drowning in someone else's wounds. She began to remember things from her own childhood. Her mother always needed her to be the strong one, the peacemaker. Her father left when she was 10, and Maya had picked up the emotional slack like a little soldier. Now, years later, she was doing the same, only this time with a man who called it romance. Leo, meanwhile, was unraveling. In therapy, something he started reluctantly, he began to trace the pattern. His father's absence, his mother's suffocating dependency, his own fear of abandonment. It all lived inside his chest, like a swarm of bees. Maya wasn't the problem, but she had become his symptom. Stillness came like an accident. Maya attended a weekend retreat her colleague recommended, something about meditation and silence. She sat in a room with strangers and said nothing for 2 days. At first it felt like punishment, but somewhere between the inhalation and the exhalation, she began to hear her own voice again. Not the voice that comforted Leo, not the voice that pleased her mother, but the voice that simply was. It whispered, "You don't have to disappear to be loved." Leo, sitting across from his therapist, heard a different voice, one he'd silenced for years. It said, "The pain you avoid becomes the pain you repeat." For the first time in his life, he didn't text her. He didn't chase. He sat with the ache. That ache became space, and that space became the beginning of truth. When Maya returned from the retreat, her apartment felt unfamiliar. Not because anything had changed, but because she had. She walked barefoot across the wooden floor, noticing the creaks for the first time. She lit a candle not to set a mood, but to witness herself in silence. There was no rush to call Leo, no urgency to explain. She simply breathed. Days passed. The space between them widened, but without hostility. It was a soft undoing, like threads being gently pulled apart. She still thought of him, missed him, but the old panic had loosened its grip. Then came the moment they met again, at a small cafe, neutral ground. He looked tired, thinner maybe, but calmer. Maya wore no makeup. Leo didn't bring flowers. They sat in silence for a while before he finally said, "I think I loved the way you made me feel. I don't think I ever saw you." Maya nodded, a small ache blooming in her chest. "I thought loving you meant saving you, but I didn't know I was drowning too." They didn't cry. They didn't make promises. There were no dramatic goodbyes or vows of starting over. Just breath, just presence, just two people seeing each other for the first time, not through the fog of need or memory, but through the clarity of now. In that quiet, something sacred surfaced. What if love wasn't a rescue mission? What if it was a mirror? Not one that flatters, but one that reveals. What if conflict wasn't a sign of failure, but a doorway? What if the pain wasn't a mistake, but a teacher? And what if, instead of grasping, we let go not out of indifference, but out of reverence for the truth? There is a way to love that does not collapse the self. There is a way to connect without losing the inner seat. There is a path out of codependence, not through rejection, but through awareness. Here are 3 ways to begin that path. First, awareness before reaction. So often we respond not to the moment, but to the echo of our past. A raised voice, a delay in response, a furrowed brow, each becomes a trigger, igniting old wounds. But if we pause before reacting, if we simply notice, we create space. And in that space, we can choose compassion over defense. We begin to respond as who we are, not who we were taught to be. Second, sovereignty within relationship. Buddhism teaches us that all things are impermanent, including identity. Yet in relationships, we often demand certainty, ownership, and control. But love that is conscious honors autonomy. Sovereignty means you remain rooted in your own center. You do not demand someone complete you. You invite them to walk beside you. Your yes means something because you are free to say no. Third, turning conflict into cones. In Zen, a cone is a paradox, a question that cannot be solved by logic, but only by awakening. What if every argument in your relationship is a cone? Not who is right, but what is being defended? Not why did this happen again, but what is being asked to be seen. When we treat tension as a dharma gate, it leads not to destruction, but to deeper intimacy with ourselves and with others. Maya and Leo didn't end up together, but they also didn't end in the way stories usually define an end. There was no hatred, no cold silence, no blocked numbers. There was just a quiet understanding that their paths had intertwined for a time, to reveal wounds, to reflect shadows, and to awaken each other from the trance of unconscious love. And in that unraveling, something new was born. Maya began painting again, not for Instagram, not to prove anything, just colors moving through her fingers like breath. She'd sit for hours, sometimes in silence, sometimes with music playing low. Her work became less about beauty and more about truth. Leo started teaching guitar to teenagers. The first time he saw a boy break into tears mid-chord, confessing his father had left the week before, Leo didn't flinch. He sat with him. They strummed together. And Leo realized healing wasn't always loud. Sometimes it was just staying present. They would see each other occasionally. At a cafe, a bookstore, an art exhibit. Their eyes would meet, and in that glance lived an entire novel. Pain, growth, release, love. A different kind of love. One not built on dependency but on clarity. Not on fire but on light. Not on needing but on knowing. If you've ever found yourself clinging to someone so tightly you forgot how to breathe. If you've ever mistaken intensity for intimacy. If you've ever felt more alone in a relationship than when you were by yourself, let this story be a mirror. You're not broken. You're just waking up. You don't have to rescue anyone to be worthy of love. You don't have to be someone's oxygen. You are already whole. Sometimes the path to conscious relating begins in heartbreak. And sometimes that heartbreak is the most sacred thing that ever happens to us. If this story stirred something quiet yet deep inside you, pass it on. It may be the light someone else is waiting for. Subscribe for more stories where the sacred meets the everyday. And remember, sometimes it is in our breaking that the light finally enters.